Welcome back to another edition of Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon. Last week we had an opportunity to speak with Canadian international and NWSL player Adriana Leon of the New York Western Flash. And it was fantastic during our Women's Soccer Spotlight. And now, this week, we get a fantastic opportunity to speak with Washington Spirit's head coach, Jim Gabarra. Jim, welcome to the program, sir. Thanks for taking some time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. So, Jim, the upcoming season just around the corner. Preseason is in full swing. How's the team looking so far?
Team's looking good. A lot of energy. First week of preseason is always very difficult, especially difficult for me because it's a new roster for me. We've got some good draft picks and we've got some good invited players in, and the first week is really evaluation, and then see where we are, and then we'll have our Canadian players come in, and our national team players come in as well. So U.S. players. So it's the first week is really evaluation, and then we'll have 2 weeks of really kind of settling in a rhythm. But I've been very happy. The staff's been very happy with the effort the players have put in, and we've got a lot accomplished so far in just a couple of days.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. It's especially good with preseason. It's always that first week or two, as you mentioned, is that true defining point. It's like, all right, how much did my players actually work out in the off season? Did they follow the programs we sent them, the nutrition, all of that? So, at least from what it sounds like, they've been doing their job, which is fantastic to hear. I'm curious in this aspect because your team, as you mentioned, a lot of fantastic and talented young ladies on your team. You mentioned some international players. One of the people I'm really curious to know about, at least from a coach's perspective, is what it's like to have an up-and-comer in the U.S. women's national team like Crystal Dunn on your roster.
It's great. I've been fortunate to manage some of the best players in the world from all different countries, and I'm really looking forward to working with Crystal. It's only been a couple of days, but the value she brings to our club, I think, was on display last year as getting 15 goals and being named the most valuable player. It's really difficult to find difference makers in our game, and she is an absolute difference maker. So I think it's been my approach to come in and try to help her along the way of improving and getting better as a player and more well-rounded, and also put some pieces around her that are going to help her and help the club.
Who are some of the players?
And get more wins.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, I was going to say, who are some of the players that you mentioned putting the right pieces around a young and exciting player like Crystal Dunn? Who are some of those ladies on your team this season that you're really looking to either see how they produce or that they will be able to step up and do some great things?
Well, from a deeper, like a 6 or an 8 role, we've got Christine Nairn, who's can spray a ball all over the park. Very, very technical player. We've got Diana Matheson, who will probably be like a number 10, and
yep.
Our Argentinian player Bonini's coming back from an ACL. That's someone who we look to kind of fill in the 10 role. And I felt the biggest need the roster had was a real number 9, a target forward, goal scorer. And we're fortunate enough to be able to discover and sign Katie Stengel. So I'm really looking forward to see how she mixes in with all of those players and how it all plays out. We haven't had an awful lot of time together so far, but so far I've liked what I've seen from them.
That's fantastic to hear. Talking with head coach of the Washington Spirit, Jim Gabarra, here on another episode here of Two Up Front. Jim, another question for you in regards to opening day, April 16th. It feels like it's just around the corner, honestly, but at least maybe in my opinion from covering and following Major League Soccer, it feels like the season ends and then it starts again almost instantaneously. But with NWSL, I feel like there's a little bit more downtime. Is that just how the league is designed, or does it feel like, at least from a coach's perspective, that you blink and all of a sudden the new season's upon you?
No, the off-season is very long. There's certainly a lot of work to do and planning and making adjustments to your roster. If anything, the preseason is too short. In our case, we've got 4 weeks. First week's evaluation, and then we've got games every weekend in preseason, and then the season starts. And it seems like once the season starts or preseason starts, all of a sudden you blink your eye and the whole season is gone.
Yeah.
So, our season is off season is probably too long, but it's kind of the path and the point we are in our development of our league.
Now, how long have you been around the women's game, for those that don't know? Wow. Okay. Fantastic. Have you always been either a head coach in the league? I know the league's only a couple years old, but have you always filled the head coach role, or have you assisted at different levels or position coach for our listeners that don't know?
No. I've been a head coach. I was the first head coach with the Washington Freedom in WSA, and I'm actually the only coach that's coached every year in women's professional soccer. And then the team, the years in between WSA and WPS, we kept the club alive and played in the W League and ran some youth stuff in anticipation of another league coming along. So the last 5 years I was at with Sky Blue in New Jersey. So it was when this job opened up, it was a great opportunity for me to come kind of full circle and come home and pick up where I left off. And 10 years ago, starting something and have the fortunate opportunity of working in a league that's in a great place and growing, and I think just like the game itself is moving in a great direction and getting to the point where we all want it to be.
Jim, speaking of the game and the direction that it's in, I'm looking back on your career here, and you actually have a connection to where Baxter and I are located. You had spent a season or two with the indoor team, the Milwaukee Wave. If you don't know, we're based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
I saw Appleton on the phone, so I knew it was.
Yeah, that's my number. Yep.
So you had a pretty long career in the indoor game as well, and one of the things we like to ask our guests about is just how you've seen the game grown from, the early '80s where indoor soccer was king and kind of basically kept the game alive professionally in this country to where it is today.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier where the game is. The men's side, I would have never, in my wildest dreams, think that you would be having, playing in front of stadiums of, 30,000 season ticket holders like a Seattle, and the atmosphere where you've got, it's a European atmosphere with, an NFL type of crowd, numbers-wise. So, I mean, it's very rewarding and gratifying for me to see the game get to that point. I think the game in overall has grown so much, and the women's game is kind of 10, 12 years behind where the men's game is. It's, I think the path is going to be very similar, but the story that I could tell is going into a sports bar last summer to watch a Women's World Cup game, and having everybody engaged, the average sports fan. Watching a Women's World Cup game or a women's soccer game and really being into it. That's another thing that you can dream about, and you think that's where the sport rightfully deserves to be as a passionate fan of the game. But to actually see that where the average fan knows about a women's national team game or the women's national team. I mean, that's something that I didn't even being a very optimistic person, I didn't think that was going to happen this soon. So, the game itself is in a great place in this country, and I think it's just going to get exponentially better.
Right. That's the next question I have for you. Is you have been involved with the leagues that have started up and then folded, started up and folded, and of course we've seen that in the men's game for years until MLS finally started to get a hold. What does the NWSL have to do to get to that point where, well, thankfully we can say where MLS is right now?
I just think it's a matter of time and making sure it's grown at the right speed. I don't have any fears that would hit another roadblock like we have in the past, simply because the structure of this league is completely different, and the overall mindset and the thought process of ownership, having U.S. Soccer involved, and all the talk is about expansion. Where the past two leagues, it was about if we lose a team, our team folds and the league folds, and then can we get it going again? And the first two leagues only lasted 3 years each, both with different kinds of problems. But this league is built upon a model of stability and sustainability and cost containment, so that it's going to be around for generations to come. So I don't know if it's anything that the league has to do outside of, realize that it is women's soccer, and it's something that's always going to take work. It's not something that you can just put out there and say, all right, we're going to, this is going to sell itself. We'd all hope that that's going to be the case in a couple of years, but for us, on the ground right now, we have to continue to work hard and make sure that we're increasing revenues so that players can get paid more and that our season could be longer and we can, continue to grow, in my opinion, the best women's league in the world.
Absolutely, and I think one of the good things that I see too is the cooperation now too between the NWSL and MLS.
Yeah,
they're helping
fantastic.
each other
See the
out.
partnerships going.
But bringing this back to Washington Spirit, this season, what do you think the fans can expect? You finished 4th last year. Obviously, you're always looking to improve, but if you could talk to the fans out there right now. Granted, it's early. What's something that you could say to them that they can expect in this coming season?
Well, I mean, it's always going to be, teams that I manage, it's going to be a hard-working fight to the finish and, very organized and a possession type of style of play. So, obviously you want to win every game. You want to finish, you want to win the Supporter Shield, and then you get in the playoffs, and you got to win. You got to be playing the best that you can be. In our case, in the end of September and October. So, I think the roster and the club was in a really good spot, and it's not like I need to come in here and reinvent things. I just got to come in and try to help it along the way and get it through the next step. They've run into Seattle the last 2 years, and it might be easy to say, hey, we got to find a way to beat Seattle, but that's pretty much what. There's 9 other people trying to do that. So
exactly.
I think it's not so much that there has to be drastic change. It just has to be, continued improvement, and I hope to help out there.
Can you enlighten us a little bit more, Coach, about the draft class that you have this year? I know you mentioned you've got some really good ladies through the draft this year, and we hear about sports like the NBA and with the NFL and all those other major sports that they build through the draft. And with women's soccer still coming around, as you've mentioned, and as we've mentioned here as well, how much of a value is getting players through the draft? Does it play as big a role in the women's league as it does in any other league, really?
Yeah, it kind of differs year to year, and where we are now, where we've got 10 teams, that's an awful lot of jobs. I mean, there's also the strength of draft class varies every year. I mean, this was a probably a middle of the road kind of draft class. We have, we ended up picking Shayna Williams from Florida State, very athletic forward, and then we took in the second round Kelly Farquharson from Arizona State, who was more of a another attacking player, but someone who I think maybe kind of was a little bit under the radar, playing out in the Pac-10 and had a little bit of injury problems, but someone who's got an awful lot of upside, very athletic, and also a very good player. And then our third pick, we took Allie Murphy, defensive midfielder or central midfielder from Texas Tech, and when we took a goalkeeper, Madeline Schiffel from University of San Francisco, and then our last pick, we picked since we have a long tradition of having reserve teams and youth club teams under our brand, or playing as our brand. We took Carol Wilson. She's a local kid who played for our reserve team the last couple of years over the summers from Duke. So coming off a national championship, so it was a very good draft class for us. I came in and we only had 2 picks. I made a trade to get 2 more picks, so we had 4 picks, and it was felt like we needed a little bit more attacking options and a little bit more pace and athleticism up front.
Well, that's fantastic. Yeah, it definitely seems as the game continues to grow. I know for true lovers of the game of soccer, they're like, wait, why does America have this draft thing? It's funny how it works, but at the same time, I mean, it is a very American thing, obviously, to do the draft. But teams like the Washington Spirit and all different kinds of teams that we hear, and MLS and NWSL can benefit out of it, and you find some of these up-and-coming talents that maybe you might have missed in the scouting realms or something. So, well, Coach, we really appreciate you taking the time today for coming on our show and speaking a little bit about the upcoming season. And we hope that we can spend a little bit more time with you in the upcoming weeks as well, and maybe check in maybe mid-season as well and see where your ladies are at that point.
All right. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, good luck with the season.
Very good.
Thank
All right, we are going to run to a break. When we come back, we've got much more in store for you here on Two Up Front. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by Sports Radio America.